Good evening. I don't have a gavel. I'd like to call to order the organizational meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission, with the first order of business being the election of the chairman. Do I have a motion? Nomination.
I make a motion to nominate Tom Fay and Eddie Santos.
Well, first we'll do the chairman, and then the chairman will take it over and he'll do the vice chair. A second?
Second.
Angela? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Chairman?
Motion to close.
Motion?
No, gotta
He has to do the vice chair now.
do the vice chair.
No, motion to close nominations for chairman,
Oh.
and then we have to do a roll.
Okay.
She did, okay,
Motion to close for the chairman.
first,
I second.
All in favor?
aye.
So moved.
That off, okay,
Now we have to have a roll call vote.
okay, so, call them out.
Roll call vote.
Dennis?
Mr. Blake?
Roll call, no.
Yes?
Yes?
Have roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes,
Okay,
now you're elected.
Okay.
so now, we just have to elect a vice chairman. Any nominations for vice chairman?
I'd like to nominate Eddie Cinto as vice chair.
We have a nomination, we have a second? We have a second? Any other nominations? No other nominations, nominations are closed. We have to have a roll call on that? Roll call on that, Mr. Blake? Yes.
Roll call? Yes.
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 John Waite, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Tom Fay, yes, done. Okay, that's all the way. Now we'll close this organizational meeting, and we will start. We'll call to order the public hearing of the Inland Wetlands Commission regarding permit 216-7V Development Single Family House, Upland Review Area, 33,000 square feet, previously clear cut without benefit of a permit. Site address 350 Whippoorwill Lane, Stratford, Connecticut, reference map 50.16, block 1, lot 82. Violator/applicant Shanna Wolf. Is Ms. Wolf or her representative here?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Secretary, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the Wetlands Commission. On behalf of the applicant, Shana Wolf, my name is Nicholas Owen. I have offices at 972 East Broadway in Stratford. Some of you may have been on the commission. I think 2 or 3 of you were on the commission when I originally came in on behalf of Shana Wolf and her husband, Brian Hirsch, with regard to this property on Whippoorwill Lane. Briefly, what he had done without a permit is clear-cut in violation of the wetlands regulation a large portion of the upland review area. I am sure you will recall that they were very contentious hearings. I'm not sure whether they went on 2 months or 3 months or how many months they went on, but in the end, the commission did in fact help him out and allowed him to formulate, and we did bring in a wetlands plan, a restoration plan. It was of great expense to him to restore most of the uplands review area in an effort to obtain a building permit so he could build a one-family ranch on that lot. That lot in nature is 1 acre plus a little bit more. It is part of a larger piece, which was originally a farm. It was 10 acres. There is no specific regulated street that goes up in that area. It is a right-of-way as of right, way back when that entire piece back there was a farm. Now, some of you have been there, so I know you can visualize in your mind's eye what I am speaking about. I didn't bring any maps tonight because it wasn't necessary to go through the entire petition. Since 2016, Mr. Hirsch has not done anything with regard to filing a bond or commencing any restoration at all. However, the one thing that he did do was he did pay his fine, and I think that was paid in a timely manner. and I think that was recognized by Ms. Kerrigan, our wetlands and tree warden, and by the way, our expert axe cutter, professional. And Kelly has been very kind to me over the past number of years, have answered my calls in an effort to try to get Mr. Hirsch to do something or get off the pot. In the past year, Mr. Hirsch and his wife, Shayna Wolf, have moved down to Florida, so he is not very motivated. However, in reviewing the permit, the overall permit, unless you tell me it is not, unless the town attorney tells you it is not, is still valid. However, there were certain items that had to be performed on this property in an effort to get it going. In the meantime, while this was happening with the Wetlands Commission, I did on his behalf file an application to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get a waiver of frontage, a number of waivers, in an effort to allow him to build a house once that wetlands restoration was completed. There was a time period. It could be reviewed by the commission 2 years after it was all planted to see if it took, and the commission could waive that right of the 3 or 4 year period, and he could start a house if, in fact, we were able to get a waiver from the Board of Zoning Appeals. We filed almost immediately. There was no prohibition in the wetlands permit to say you couldn't. We could. It was our right to do so, and I felt that we would get a favorable opinion from the board, which we did not, and we took that denial from the Board of Zoning Appeals to the court. And the court, through Judge Radcliffe, upheld the denial. That was very disappointing, since a whole lot of work went into all of this to try to make it work for everyone. And as an aside, I will tell you that if Mr. Hirsch did not clear cut prior to obtaining a permit, I don't think he would have met with the kind of opposition that he met up there, because he really and truly angered the neighborhood. He certainly angered the board. I certainly had to work like hell in order for the board to approve a restoration plan, which to date has not happened. Is there an opportunity for Mr. Hirsch to refile again with the Board of Zoning Appeals? Yes, there is. Will he do that? I'm not sure. I really don't know. I've had several discussions with Mr. Hirsch, and we have batted around a number of scenarios. And I will go through them, and at any point during what I'm saying, if you have a question or you have an argument with me, please speak up. That way we can get through it and everybody understands where we might be going. If this good board says we are not going to extend the permit, it's lost, or we are not going to extend the permit beyond I think it's March of this year, if I'm not mistaken, then the permit expires on its own. So the question is, if it expires, then there is no restoration plan whatsoever. Mr. Hirsch could walk away. Mr. Hirsch could hire me yet again to come before the board and try to obtain another permit to do a restoration plan, and we can file again with the Board of Zoning Appeals in an attempt to get a waiver in order to build a house on a pre-existing non-conforming piece of property. I'm not sure it's likely that the approval of the Board of Zoning Appeals will be forthcoming, and if it is, I'm sure the neighbors will appeal it. And no disrespect, I've had several conversations with Attorney Schofield, who's an abutting property owner, and he's a complete gentleman, and we understand each other. We just come at this differently. If I were him or his neighbors and somebody went in and clear-cut property that they should obtain a permit prior to clear-cutting, I would be angry too. So I think a lot of their animosities for the fact that he came in, clear-cut, without a permit, and then came in for a permit after the fact. Not a good idea. And the fact that he has done nothing, not a good idea. So I am suggesting that maybe, and I suggest it respectfully, that if you pull a permit, that you should check with your town attorney if in fact that's the right thing to do. A number of members of the commission, and it wasn't this past summer, I think it was the summer before, and Mr. Fay, you can help me with this, you all agreed, or most of the members agreed, to meet me out on the property to go over it because it has been substantially overgrown. and the commission members were kind enough to come out to take a look-see to see if we could modify the permit that was in place, or that is in place, to do a little bit less of replantation since it was grown over. It was determined at that time that most of the growth was what you guys term invasive species. Well, Mr. Hirsch, you, me, nobody can stop birds from dropping their droppings and seeds on the ground and wind blowing and invasive quote-unquote species taking root and growing, but it is grown. Now, is it grown substantially with the plants or the trees or the shrubs that were initially there? Absolutely not, it's not. Is it really a good idea to go in and disturb everything, and I'm grandstanding now, and disturb things to do a plantation plan that's gonna cost about $45,000? I don't happen to believe that's a good idea. In fact, I imparted that to Mr. Hirsch, Shayna's husband. Is there an opportunity or a potential to come back into the board and modify this plan and bring my experts back in and do a modified workout on this thing? That's going to be completely up to you. If you say, Nick, tell your client, go to hell, he had his shot, we bent over backwards, we're going to call our attorneys and we're going to sue him, he's moved to Florida. And I told him, well, if they sue, sue away. Has he decided not to pay the property taxes in the past year or two because there's nothing he can do with the property at this point? He took that attitude. I told him that was probably not a good idea. So we're kind of, I told him we are kind of at the mercy of the board as to which way they want to go. Do I ultimately feel if we work at it hard enough, something good can happen out there? Maybe. A new presentation to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and instead of standing on my head spitting nickels trying to get it done, I can stand on my head and spit quarters, and maybe the board will approve it. And if that happens, I know the good attorney Schofield will appeal it again, and we'll be in court another 2 or 3 years, which is the way things happen to work, and that's the way of life. So I guess we are at the mercy of the Wetlands Commission as to what they want to do. And I will be brief, and then I will complete my remarks. There have been very, very preliminary discussions about one or more of the neighbors making a proposal to purchase the property from Mr. Hirsch. That could create, that would be a great situation. However, it would create a problem from them, excuse me, if the board turned around and says, geez, that's great, but now the new owners have to go in and do the restoration plan, which is not going to happen. It will stay, most likely stay in the state that it's in. It's grown, and I'm sure Attorney Schofield can attest to that this evening. So, guys, with all respect, I leave it up to you. We're not here with what you guys would term in the legal industry with clean hands. He simply did not do what he was supposed to do. He did not initially do it on purpose, although there's some argument of whether he did or whether he didn't, but we have what we have now. This is what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have an intervener. Would like to speak up? Name and address for the secretary.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Edward Schofield. I live at 140 Butternut Lane, which is an adjoining property. Butternut backs up to this property. The property at 320 Whippoorwill, if you folks have walked the property, is the house on the right side of that driveway, and then my house is just a little bit along to the left. The Malikas, who live next door to me at 160 Butternut, couldn't be here tonight. They're in Arizona. They had a death in the family, so I'm speaking on behalf of them as well. They're members of the one of the corporate intervener in this matter. I filed the other day, and I hope the members of the commission have a copy of our statement with respect to the proposed revocation of the permit. I do recognize that not everyone on the commission was there back in 2016 when this first happened, or in 2017 when the ruling was rendered, and I'm going to try to be very brief, but I wanted to make a few points. One, I appreciate Mr. Owen's candor. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious if this board's orders are going to have any teeth to them at all. A situation where a property owner begins clear-cutting land, is confronted in his yard by a neighbor, namely me, and asked what's going on. I was told, well, I'm going to build a house back here, and I said to him, and I know some of you have heard this before, but I said to him, well, sir, I'd always understood that this property was not, buildable. And he said, oh, no, I have all the permits from the town. That afternoon, I went down to the building department, no record of any permit. I talked to Mr. Wysotsky in zoning. John pulled out the wetlands map and said, I can't believe he's building up there or is doing anything, and went out and slapped a cease and desist on him. And it's been a record of non-compliance ever since. This is a period now of, the clear cutting was on or about April 25th of 2016. We're at the 5.5-year mark, according to Mr. Owen's candid assessment, and the record supports this. Other than the payment of the $500 fine, nothing, not one thing has been done. Now we're told that the owners have moved to Florida, essentially almost abandoning the property. Although Mr. Owen's account of the zoning proceedings is accurate in the sense that they went to zoning to seek approval. It required 7 variances to build a residential home on a flag lot. The ZBA was unanimous in rejecting the application. We went up to the court. Judge Radcliffe, who has a lot of experience in these zoning matters, ruled strongly against the owner and in favor of the town. The likelihood, in my own view, is that it's extremely unlikely that the ZBA or the court would permit this land ever to be built on under all the circumstances. So the issues before the panel now are what to do. Do you revoke the permit, as we would strongly urge the commission to do? And if so, what are the next steps? I will agree with Mr. Owen on one other point, which is, I did speak to Steve Danzer. Steve, I think, is familiar to some members of the commission. He had been our expert witness back in 2017 when we presented on this issue, on the question of would the restoration plan be potentially different than it was back initially. The commission may recall that the initial restoration plan contemplated a single-family house, potentially substantial digging, maybe even blasting, construction, and so forth, maybe more runoff. Obviously now, since we don't believe there will be a structure on the property, the extent of that may be diminished. Moreover, it seems possible that the property, just a quick example, one component of the restoration plan was to perhaps placate the neighbors, was that the new built owner was going to put up large spruce trees along the border. That's the type of thing that may no longer be necessary. The land is going to lie fallow. It's just a vacant lot now. So Danzer did tell me that he hadn't come out, as I guess you folks have done, walked the property since that time. He was just speculating. He says, you know what, I know what happens when there's a clear cutting. The canopy is removed, and invasive species tend to proliferate. So I guess his surmise about what might have happened is actually happening, and that's something that perhaps should be addressed. Finally, with respect to Mr. Owen's comment about the neighbors, I'm one of those neighbors, and Nick and I have had very preliminary discussions. Obviously, we've got considerations about what would be the burden that we would face if we were to take the property. We'd want to, I've lived in Stratford my whole life. If I undertake a responsibility like that, I'm going to make sure I do it correctly right along with my neighbors. So we don't do it lightly, but we also want to protect the nature of the bucolic nature of the neighborhood back there if we can. And then there are, as he mentioned, he alluded to the taxes. There's some significant issues with respect to the taxes that would have to be addressed by myself and the neighbors. So I won't go through the items I mentioned in my statement the other day, just a few pages, but I would ask that you look at that before rendering any ruling on this. And obviously, if you have any questions of me, feel free to ask. And thank you for your time tonight and over the last 6 years or so.
Thank you. Any questions?
One question for you, Attorney, and a couple of questions for Mr. Owens. I noticed the intervening letter was sent to Shaner Wolf at 130 Water Street, Greenwich. Was it also sent to them in Florida?
It wasn't.
You have the address.
It wasn't, and frankly, and I apologize. So much time has gone by.
question.
I didn't realize she had moved. I know Nick did share with me that Mr. Hirsch had moved to Florida. I didn't realize they'd left as a couple. I tried the best I could to get notice to her. I hope, it sounds to me like Mr. Owen's been in touch with them and that they're aware of this? They are. Okay.
Yeah, because I looked up public records for this particular client. The house in Greenwich is still registered to them.
Well,
So
that's kind of
apparently
what I
they
went,
have- yeah.
that's what I went off of, yes.
Just say- But they're not living there, so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything further from me?
No, I'm all
Okay,
set
thank
on
you very
that.
much.
Just stand by now. It dawned on me while Attorney Schofield was speaking. First of all, the Shayna Wolf and her husband Hirsch were notified by me.
Okay.
I did fax them a copy of the letter, so they are aware of this. They are fully aware of the situation. And in fact, Kelly had asked me to get permission from them to speak on their behalf, and I did send her in. So we're covered legally all the way around as far as I'm concerned, even though I'm not an attorney. I do know some of the procedures. What dawned on me, a situation that if in fact the neighbors get together, or Mr. Schofield decides on his own, Attorney Schofield decides on his own that he'd be interested in buying it, there is a situation that you may be able to look at. You're going to have to speak with your town attorney whether it is viable, legal or not. But I know there were situations in the past where there have been issues with people doing things without a permit, where the town or the Wetlands Commission imposed some additional type of penalty. And that penalty money, call it what you will, was used to restore or enhance another piece of wetlands in town. I think I'm correct at that. It's been a long time since I looked at any of that, so that could potentially be a possibility too. Therefore, leaving the property the way it is, and if the Schofields and his neighbors want to purchase it, that way they would not have the burden, in fact, of trying to restore something that they really shouldn't have to be responsible for. And as far as the property taxes, whatever purchase price the Schofields and his neighbors negotiated with the Hirsch people, obviously the property taxes would be paid in full. There would have to be a title search. Whatever liens and encumbrances on the property would have to come out of the proceeds of that sale. And I just wanted to impart that situation to the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Owens, I have a question. When you talk to Mr. Hirsch, is he entertaining or interested in selling the property to,
I had a very brief...
or is he just going to sit on it and aggravate everybody?
Well,
Okay,
you know,
so-
that is a good question. I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay?
Mr. Hirsch he may have been arrogant initially, way back when. He's not arrogant at this point. He would like to figure out a solution so he can get out of it without giving up everything that he put into it, and he did put quite a bit of money into it. His problem, not my problem, not Attorney Schofield's problem, not the board's problem, but he would like to recover something. And I told him that, look, that may be a situation where you can negotiate with these people in good faith, and they can turn around and buy it, and everybody is happy. Does that answer your question, or did I go off on a tangent?
I do have one other question,
Go ahead.
and you can tell me it's none of my business. Have you been paid for your services?
I'd rather not say.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this public hearing has been called because we want to revoke this permit, and we wanted to give the applicant an opportunity to make the case. That's been done. This permit expires when, Kelly?
May 17th, 2022.
So if we were to revoke it, today is
The 20th.
the 20th, 19th, so
Sorry.
we beat it out of 2 months of its life by revocation, correct? It was-
Yeah.
If we revoke this permit rather than let it expire, is there any legal advantage to one or the other? I don't know. That's a question.
I just wanted to make one comment that may be of interest, that although the permit holder paid the $500 fine, that was reduced because of the restoration plan that was implemented. So the restoration plan is part of of the whole fine, so I don't know if that matters to you.
And Kelly tells me that he's in arrears 16,000
As of 2020.
now, but in another week or two, the end of the month, I'm pretty sure he's not gonna pay.
What, property taxes?
Yeah. No, so it'll be more, that's the point. And, you know, I mean, it won't take long before the property taxes exceed the value of the property, especially with 20% interest.
What can I say?
Well, if, the attorney, if we were to revoke the permit, would that be of any advantage to the neighbors who may or may not want to purchase this? Would it make the property less encumbered?
So I think you're here because you were going to revoke the permit.
Right,
You were
we
giving
wanted
him an
to, yes.
opportunity. So I think that
Yeah.
you have to move forward on what you
Okay.
were, planning to do.
Okay.
You know, that makes sense to me. I don't, Kelly, do you have any input on? Yeah.
Yeah, you're on. Yeah, now you are.
All right, now you can hear me. My thought was to revoke the permit just because the terms of the permit have not been fulfilled, and that in and of itself is a reason to revoke the permit. Namely, the plant material was supposed to be installed by June 30th of 2019, and we were supposed to get monthly reports from the landscape architect for 2 full growing seasons. So there's multiple cases here where in this permit that they have not fulfilled. So I think that alone is grounds for
Okay.
removal,
All right, so
or revocation rather.
we'll entertain the-
Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we cancel, revoke this permit, and any and all other permits that this particular client has applied for, and he hasn't, obviously, he hasn't given us any bond money, so any and all financial monies that he's paid the town, that we keep it, and we notify him that he now has an opportunity to sell the property, okay, to the residents, if they so desire to
anybody.
purchase it. Otherwise, I don't know if there's any legal recourse. If he decides not to sell it and just sit on it, can the town confiscate or do something and take back the property?
Sure. As soon as the taxes get up there, we can foreclose on it, we could foreclose on it right now for the taxes.
The town, if it's, again, for the record, Nicholas Owen, the town, and obviously the good attorney can tell you, can commence a foreclosure action on the taxes
Right
if
now.
they so choose. That will take a couple of years.
Right.
If you revoke the permit, and I'm not suggesting that you should or should not, there's 2 issues there. One, he could appeal that revocation, which would tie it up, and put a stay on the permit so it doesn't disappear tonight if you revoke it, if he chose to do that. But it also gives the homeowners, if they're interested, or Attorney Schofield and his people, the ability to buy a piece of property that is unencumbered by any wetland restoration whatsoever. In other words, they would not have to do any restoration at all. They would just obtain clear title.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
With this question,
Yes, Dr. Chen.
so if we in fact let it expire, could they then have an appeal? If it expires, then there is no appeal, because they let it expire. And so
If it
that might in
expires-
fact be the more prudent
It
approach.
expires, but I don't know, does the restoration plan die with the permit?
Right, it's a permit to do the restoration work.
The
So,
restoration work was made a part of the permit after the violation was noted and brought to this board. So,
so you don't get you don't get the restoration if the permit is not in place. It doesn't mean that there isn't still a violation, but
Briefly on that, there was at the time of the application in 2016, when we came before the board in
I know, I was here.
in 2017, I recall that, we had asked that there be a bifurcation of the permit application and the order to restore.
Right,
The idea being that if the permit were revoked, it seems to me, and I'm not a
Right.
practitioner in this area, it may be that the board would or would not have the authority to go ahead and issue the other component of it, the other half of it, namely the order to restore. So I don't know whether it would be meaningful. I think, question whether it would have any value given the track record of this particular owner, but I'm not sure. I'm not an expert in the field, but it may be that there's something there, because we had asked for bifurcation, it was denied. The board decided to put the two of them, link the two of them together, but we thought there was a basis for segregation.
right, so,
Chair, I have a question. If we cancel, we dissolve the permit, and we go forward with Mr. Hirsch to sell the property, I mean, obviously, he owns the property, so there's property tax bills coming through on that property. He's got to pay tax on it for the town. If he decides not to pay the property tax, what
not
is the
gonna transfer
recourse?
you can't sell it without paying the taxes are gonna get paid
Yeah.
if the property's transferred.
My-
No
my-
question
My
about that.
point is, he's just going to sit on the property and just, hopefully, things will disappear in 100
No, they
years.
won't, but-
So, that's not the
Well-
case, yeah.
I think, so we have a motion to
Yes.
revoke the permit.
Yes.
Any other discussion? I think we probably should. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
So we have a second. So, all in favor of revoking the permit?
And with no restoration?
We revoke the permit, and anything that's attached to it
Yes.
gets revoked with it. Whatever
So they're not,
whatever
That's right.
coattails are on there, it all
Whatever
gets
coattails
swept
are on
under the-
there are
Yes.
done, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second
Yep.
to revoke permit 2016-7V. All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I opposed it because I personally think that letting it expire means that they have no legal challenge.
Well, okay, but
But that's a fine, still pass.
it fails. 3-1, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Okay,
All right, I would like to close the public hearing and call to order the regular meeting. First item, approval of the minutes of December 15, 2021 regular meeting. Everyone have a chance to look at the minutes? Are there any corrections, deletions, additions? Entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Angelo, second.
a second?
Now, wait, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Old business. 2021-13, 20-lot subdivision, they call it Teakwood Estates. We've had a couple items. Need a motion to take that off the table, if I may.
Make a motion to take it off the table?
Second? Mr. Waite, all in favor? Okay. Kelly, can you bring us up to date on that?
Sure. Since our December 2021 meeting, the applicant has not submitted any additional supplemental materials as requested, and I have spoken with the applicant's attorney today, and they have requested that this be tabled till the next meeting.
Okay, so entertain a motion to put this back on the table?
Motion, take it off the table?
Back on, put it back on.
Make a motion to put it back on the table?
Second? Dr. Chess, all in favor?
Aye.
New business. 2022-1, construction of a 4,198 square foot commercial building addition within the Upland Review Area, 180 Surf Avenue, Assessors Map 20.6, Block 6. Stratton Industries, or their representative here.
Good evening. My name is Steve Santa Cruz. I'm representing Rose Hughes-Owen Company, representing the applicant Stratton Industries. Okay. Manny is going to pass out some revised materials that we, I believe, submitted on Monday of this week. So, the proposal is a building addition of approximately 4,200 square feet on the eastern side of the existing commercial building at 180 Surf Avenue. It's represented by this hatched area here on the plan. There's some storage containers that will be removed and taken off site. In addition, they're going to be, there's an existing gravel parking area that is going to remain, as well as a paved asphalt parking area. And there's currently access curb cuts for both of these parking areas. And so with the proposed improvements, they're also going to be so in addition to the building improvements, they're also going to be improving the stormwater management system. Currently, the gravel parking lot is draining from the southwestern corner of the parking area to these existing catch basins located to the south of the existing building. And these runoff currently discharges directly to the wetlands area. We're going to be improving that by rerouting the runoff to a stormwater quality separator, as well as a detention area. And then that will discharge to a level spreader, which will flow into the existing wetlands area. And that's going to provide some attenuation for the storm events up to 50-year storm. And so that's kind of a summary. Any questions?
I have a couple questions. Oh, you can go first. Oh, okay.
You have a question? Andy?
Yeah, these are my questions. Okay.
Fire away.
Okay. So my first question is, why are you putting an addition on?
The applicant is proposing addition to provide some warehouse area for their commercial enterprises.
Okay. My second question is, are you concerned about the flooding in the area? I took a drive-by there yesterday, and there was still water pooling off exit 30 at the I-95 entrance.
Mm-hmm. So we're proposing a stormwater detention area, and that's going to provide some additional storage for that flooding, and it'll reduce the runoff currently coming from the existing site.
Okay. So where are you going to have the retention area? At the...
It's to the south of the building in this area.
Okay. So why are you putting it there and not on the extension?
Not on the...
Not on the extension point?
The extension of...
the extension part.
Where, sorry, I'm not following.
Okay. So you're saying you're putting it here?
Correct, yep.
And why not here? Because you're putting the extension closer to I-95.
Oh, okay. This is where the site's draining currently, so
Mhm.
it's just more advantageous to put it in that area. And
Okay.
there's going to be roof leaders from the addition that'll tie into that as well.
Okay. The other question I have, I looked on MetroCog, is that right? Okay. So currently the property is in a FEMA special flood hazard zone. There was something on the map written about yay big, about the hazard zone. Any concerns about that?
So we're not proposing any fill
Okay.
for the site, and so there's not going to be any additional volume that will be taken up by the proposal.
Okay. All right. And does the current building have any flooding or water problems?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, you answered my next question. Okay. And have the engineers checked the stability of the building, the current building?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, all right. And just out of curiosity, on the letter from the soil scientist, it said a residential property.
I'm sorry?
On the letter from the soil scientist, it said a residential property.
Oh, it did? Okay, that obviously is a typo
Okay,
by him.
all right. I'm good, thank you.
I provided my comments, both to the commission as well as the applicant's agent, specifically to Manny. And it does look like they have provided adequate responses to my questions. And it's my opinion that this application appears to be complete at this time.
So the question before us is, do we accept this application as complete? We're not going to, we can't rule on it. All we can do is accept it as complete or not complete, so. I entertain a motion to
Accept the application.
accept it.
I'll
Mr.
second the
Blake,
motion.
second John Wade. All in favor? Okay, so
Thank you.
we'll see you next month.
Okay.
Actually, I won't see you next month, but somebody will. Okay, moving on to the next item on new business, 2013-1M4, permit modification request for 169,622 square foot distribution warehouse, Stratford Development. We've seen this before, so is the applicant or his representative here?
Good evening, and thank you all for your time. I know you thought I was done with this site, and we thought we were done with this site. My name is James Casey. I live at 1903 Burr Street, Fairfield, Connecticut. I work for Stratford Development, and the support you all have given us since the initial permit's been fabulous. The company that was going to develop this site at the last minute lost a tenant, so that we came before you and modified a permit from a 140,000-foot building to a 64,000-foot building. And during this whole process, we're basically trading building footprint for asphalt parking.
Right.
So we went from a somewhat larger building, smaller parking, to a smaller building and more parking. And the tenant, who will remain nameless, at the last minute said they didn't want to go forward with the deal. So the purchaser is Exeter Property Group, and Exeter Property Group showed up back when COVID showed up, and they had a deal, and we tried to work it with them, and it fell apart due to COVID. This last deal last year is the second time they've been right at the moment to develop the site, and they lost their tenant. So since they've been in Stratford for a couple of years, they have confidence that this area is wonderful for distribution warehouses. They've seen what's been happening on Lordship Boulevard. And so I'm here before you this evening to request you all consider modifying the permit one more time from a 64,000-foot building to just under a 170,000-foot building, and requisite 197 parking spaces. And when you go through the entire permit, the last one that you approved and modified, and the one that we've submitted to you all this evening, the stormwater numbers don't change. This site was approved previously for so many acres of stormwater discharge. And at the last hearing, when you approved the 64,000-foot building, we were almost 3 acres below that prior approval amount of area that's discharging. And we stand here before you this evening with exactly the same number. So we're trading building footprint for asphalt parking. And I'm happy to continue, but I open it up to questions and see where you all are on this application.
First, Kelly, you have anything?
Just as with the previous permit, I provided my comments to the commission as well as to Manny Silva. And at this point, I don't have any further questions. I feel like you've satisfied everything that I've asked for at this time. Yep.
Any questions for Commissioner?
I was just curious what the Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and Plan D are all about.
Well, those represent the historic approvals of this permit. The first time it was issued, it was a 42-acre site with a single building of 530,000 square feet. The second application subdivided the site into 3 lots and asked for the approval to construct 225,000 square feet on the rear 28 acres of the site and showed nothing for the balance of the site. The third application showed 137,700 square foot building approved on 975, the second lot. The 225,000 square feet had already been constructed and nothing on lot 3. The last, I guess that was A, B, C. D was a 64,000 square foot building on 975 Lordship with support parking on 775 Lordship Boulevard. So we've gone from a total of 530, and today we're at existing 225 with a request to build 170, and we're done. So we've somehow stayed below the original gross building size approval and the original gross stormwater area to discharge approval.
Anything else? You can't go through the whole alphabet.
I'm just happy you put it on. You all put it on the agenda, and you're allowing me to speak. And one more time, maybe.
I just couldn't resist.
Please.
All right, so the question before us, is the application complete and can we accept it? Kelly recommends that we do. We have a motion.
Make a motion, we go forward with this application?
Motion to accept, second by Mr. Blake. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor. All set.
Thank you. I'm also going to submit this for you all to browse through if you care to. The original application included a 530,000-foot building on this site and 42 acres of tidal wetland restoration, which was completed. And here's a photo album of all the restoration work that was done.
Good, thank you.
To remember where we've come from, we've come a long way, and I appreciate your time this evening.
Staff reports.
All right, for my staff report, again, per the request of Dr. Chest and the commission, the Conservation Commission is still currently working on a native planting guide to include a list of prohibited non-natives and invasive species as well. That is currently still being worked on, but not yet completed to share with the commission. I still have 5 performance bonds in my queue. The Lindquist Drive performance bond, I've not received any correspondence in the past probably 3 or 4 months, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there with that permit holder, but I am in correspondence with Joe Owen on the Nicky Lane Circle single lot development projects, and that will be coming before the commission shortly. And then, again, I think I emailed this all to you. Virtual training is available for commission members. It's free of charge. I provided the link, and then if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Dr. Chess, were you able to log in? Okay, great. I'm glad. I'm not sure. I took it in 2020, I want to say. I'm not quite sure. It took a good amount of time. It's a pretty good course. I highly recommend it.
Once you start it, you have to go all...
No, you can log back in,
on and
you
off.
can log in and log off at your leisure, yep. Butchered that word. And then I've had no enforcement actions or administrative permits between December 10th of my last memo and the date of this memo, just January 14th.
Anything else from the commissioners? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second by Mr. Blake, all in favor? Thank you very much.